Hi, welcome back. So this week we're looking at meetings with your Deputy SENCO, Assistant SENCO and with your teaching assistants, which can always be a little bit challenging, can't it? Especially finding the time to actually have those meetings. So let's dip in and find out what we had to say.
But it's kind of the same level as the SENCO. So assistant or deputy SENCO meetings, how are these going to work together? Because sometimes there's a bit of a clash of personalities in these things here, and everybody really wants to be the number one cheese as a SENCO.
Do you know, it's interesting actually. So I think, again, there's two scenarios. So in some schools, what has happened is the deputy or assistant SENCO role didn't exist. And for those of you who don't know the difference between deputy and assistant, there is no difference. There is no legal definition of either of them. The way I use it is a deputy SENCO is somebody who has QTS and could literally step into the SENCO's role. An assistant SENCO might be a TA who is just very, very good, but wouldn't actually ever be able to step into that SENCO position. So I kind of work it the same way as you do a head, deputy head and assistant head type thing. So, but your deputy, you've got some schools where they've got somebody who was just really good at SEN and they're almost like friends with the SENCO. So they've been brought on board to take on some of the SENCO role. Yeah. And I don't think there's an issue there about the synergy and the relationship, because I think those tend to work really, really well together. Probably because you've brought them on board with you and you're working with them and you're sharing that information. You've both got the same passion, you both understand school, and you're both likely to have been there a while. The other side of that is where you've got perhaps a deputy SENCO who's in role or an assistant SENCO who's in role, and we've just advertised the SENCO role. So coming in, bit of a new broom, always a problem. Or you're the SENCO role and you've just created the deputy role and you've gone out to tender for it, so you've advertised it.
The SENCO has gone off on maternity leave, because majority of SENCOs are female, and therefore they are being moved out of the role and somebody else is being pushed up, and then they have to return, or they've been off on sickness or illness.
Yeah, you don't tend to get pushed up. It just tends to pick up the pieces for a while and they don't get called the SENCO. But yeah, so yeah, there are those as well. So if I was in the first situation where it's your friend, as we're going to call it, I think those meetings tend to be quite informal. And I think they need to become a bit more formalised. The biggest problem that we see actually with SENCO, deputy SENCO type roles is the division of labour. So because that, both of them are entitled to be the SENCO in this sense. So how do we actually divide up who is doing what? So is one of you key stage 3 and one of you key stage 4? Is one of your early years and key stage 1 and the other one key stage 2? Is it that you're going to split it by families because you've got multiple children from family, and you're going to go, okay, I'll deal with that family and you're going to deal with that family? Are you going to do it by need? So I'll do cognition and learning and speech and language. You're going to do SEMH and VI SPD. So it's, how do you divide that up between you? And then how do you make sure that you're liaising with each other on that information? Because you can't become unskilled in any area. And you may feel, let's take speech and language. I always talk about speech and language. Speech and language was not my forte when I was in school, and I do regret that now. But if I had passed that over to somebody else, to my deputy SENCO or assistant SENCO, should I have had one, if I had passed it over to them and kind of relinquished that knowledge, that experience, that ability to take part in those things, then I would have de-skilled myself. Yeah. So I think, and this is what I always talk about with teachers, isn't it? So teachers demanding TAs in the room has meant that teachers have become de-skilled in actually meeting kids' needs.
Yeah, and that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation. But it is my, one of my biggest fears at the moment is that we're kind of de-skilling our professionalism. But we've got to keep that liaison going. But there's also other things that will go on that you need to correspond about. So one of you might have been on the local authority training about how to fill in a new EHCP form that they've just introduced. It's the 6th one in 3 years, but let's have another one anyway. One of you might have been on the IPSI training or spoken to Birgit Long about funding. One of you might have done, some fantastic webinar produced by SENsible SENCO.
That's recorded, that you could watch, and then you can send them all the recordings.
So how do you share that information between the two of you? I think that's really important. Yeah. And sometimes if you have split it by need, so the SEMH on one side and cognition on the other, and you're both directing TAs to go to places. So, I need you to go and support Fred with his SEMH, I need you to go and support Daisy with her dyslexia, and you've just sent 2 TAs to the same classroom because they're in there. So there has to be that I suppose it's a planning session. And then it's those general little chats that go on.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I also kind of think that you need to look at your longer term skilling up as well. So, you know, your Sencos for the time being, do you want to stay the Sencos? Do you want to kind of go up to the lead Sen advisor or whatever else it was? Or do you want to go to Abigail's way and become a consultant at some point? You're going to have to decide what you want to do with your career, and then skill yourself appropriately for that in the future. So if you want to be a Senko, you're going to have to stay very, very general with a lot of the things you do, and then maybe pick a few out that you can specialise in, but you've still got to have that big, huge base of information and knowledge that you need.
Yeah, and some of the Senkos that we support, I have noticed that the ones that come from a more specific and specialised background, so perhaps somebody who's come from an SEMH background, or somebody who's done a master's degree in autism and has then done their Senko, or somebody who's started out as a specialist teacher, so done their dyslexia qualification and then become a Senko, they become very focused on those areas, and they forget, well, not that they forget, but they're just not as skilled in the other areas, and that's where they're finding it really difficult. You do have to be a jack of all trades, and that does mean you are a master of none, unfortunately. So I would say I am a jack of all trades in terms of Senko. I know a little bit about everything. I also know that Google is my best friend and will give me an answer to something pretty quickly if I don't know it. So nip into the toilet.
But we've got so many people that we can go to for that kind of information now. So, you know.
Yeah, and I would say that having come out of being that regular Senko role, I've learned more in the last 6 or 7 years than I ever did in my 25 years actually in role. Simply because I get to work with those professionals now. But that's, it's not going to change for those of you who are enrolled.
No. So planning the meeting beforehand with the Senko friend, we're going to go with, you need to put a professional kind of structure in place. Put your minutes of the meeting, put your agenda, put everything together, and then go through that, because otherwise it's just going to become fish and chips at lunch. You're going to go out to the pub or wherever else that you go and have your meetings. So, make sure that it's not just a friendly chat. It is something that is going to have an impact on the students that you're looking after, because that is what you're there for. So the other side of things, if you are splitting it between you, make sure that it's structured again, and you know what each of you are doing, and then just check that each of you actually doing the right thing. So
quality assure each other.
Yeah, because you both need to know the same amount of stuff. Yeah. So, but.
And it's not about criticising each other. It is about quality assurance. Like I say, my expertise is not in speech and language. I can write something, and then I perhaps have to get somebody to check it. I'm okay with that. But then again, I'm okay admitting to my mistakes and going, I've done that wrong. Okay, so let's talk about the conflict relationship.
Okay.
So where you have got a conflict relationship, or perhaps you're the new broom that's come in, or you've got a new broom that's come in, there has got to be a structured agenda. That sounds quite dystopian in a way, doesn't it? But it's all about protecting yourself and protecting the role and protecting the students that you're working with. And none of us can sit there and go, well, this is the way we've always done it, and that's why I want to keep doing it this way. Because that new person coming in might have some really good ideas and actually revamp the department. And even though you might be an outstanding school, they may have something that takes you beyond outstanding. Yeah. So it's not about shutting somebody down, but it's about putting forward why you do something the way you do it. So what we don't want is, and I've experienced this, somebody comes in and they're like, oh no, we're not doing that anymore.
Well, why are you not doing that?
Why are we not doing it anymore? And what's the replacement, and how can we evidence it? Because we've got the evidence that this works. So how is your proposal going to change that? And can we just do it with half of the year group, or can we do it, can we phase it in rather than just go, oh, new group, sweep everybody out the door, new stuff in, etc. So really structured agendas. And in this particular case, actually having meeting time, having somebody take minutes of those meetings can be useful as well. Or even if you take minutes yourself, or use something like Otter to transcribe it for you, it can just be really useful to refer back to. Now, I was the Senko. We had a assistant head come into the school who wanted to make her mark. So she was put in place as my line manager, who knew nothing about SEN. Let's not even go there. And she would say, my meetings were on a Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. So on a Thursday morning at 8 o'clock, I would go in and she would give me a list of things she expected me to do that week. which was really quite rude because it was like, I already have my own list of things to do, thank you very much, and none of these are actually related to my role, but okay. And then I would do what I could do, and then go to the meeting the following week and get told, oh no, I didn't ask you to do that, that's not what I wanted. And it was really, really strange. You know who I'm talking about.
I do know who you're talking about, but I think that's a really, really
it was
weird
really
way
strange.
of working.
It's a very strange way of working, and it was almost trying to build evidence that I wasn't doing what I should be doing, even though the things I was being asked to do were not actually to do with the SENCO role anyway, but I was still making an effort to attempt them. It's really hard. So I think the problem I had was it was me. So she was verbalising them to me. I was writing them down on a piece of paper. There was no evidence trail that is ever what she said. So she would sit there and go, but that's not actually what I said to you. And because I've written it, not her writing it, I hadn't got anything. So my trick or my tip here is if anybody asks you to do something and you think you are being set up, which is what I kind of felt I was being, ask for it in an email. And if they're not willing to send you the email with a list of things, you send them your email with, I believe that in our discussion this morning, we discussed that I would do X, Y, Z. Please can you confirm that this is correct? You've then got a trail.
Yeah, but you don't even need to do that nowadays, do you? Because you can sit there in front of a computer, you can load Teams up, you can put the transcribe on Teams, and then you can get it to record what's actually been said, send a transcript to both of you at the end of that, and this is what was actually said in the meeting. Yeah. And there is no argument over that because it's exactly what was said.
There isn't, but I know that some people have an issue with being recorded, and that would class under recording. So I think that the email can be quite useful. And also with an email, you can always blind copy yourself to a private address. So should your data manager decide to delete your school emails sent to certain individuals, sorry, can you tell I've experienced this? Then you've still got a copy of it lurking somewhere. So personally, I prefer the email version, but
there are other ways of doing it that will save you a bit of time. That's
there are other ways to do it. So, have it on a Teams meeting, have transcribe on. You could, if you want to do a transcript, say like we're talking at the moment, I could have just stuck Otter on my phone and it would have transcribed everything and pick up both of our voices. There are plenty of things out there that will do it. Just make sure that other person is aware that you are recording, and remember that the recording can only be used for your own purposes. It's not to be shared widely amongst
because you could just get that recording, stick it into ChatGPT, go ChatGPT, what are the outcomes of this meeting? Bang, job done, send it through.
I wouldn't stick it in ChatGPT because it's public data. So make sure you put it into one of the paid versions where they keep your data
That's
private.
What I meant. I meant the paid versions, people. So we've got the SENCOs, and now let's go a little bit further down. And I really don't like this.
You really need to stop saying this.
I really don't like
this. Let's move elsewhere within the school.
It's the hierarchy of the school, though, isn't it? So it is hierarchical that I'm going at the moment. So TA meetings. Okay, these can be either really good meetings or really difficult meetings, depending on what level of TA that you've got in there. So, is it a TA that was... So this is going to go really badly as well. Is it a TA that is...
An obnoxious moo cow?
Just filling your numbers. TA.
Oh, one of those.
It's filling your numbers. It's doing.
You mean it's got a pulse? It's a TA with a pulse.
It's a TA with a pulse. Okay. Is it a really good TA? And how do you use those meetings to transform a pulse TA to a lovely, oh my God, they are super special and we are going to work with them and they are the love. Little heart, I can't do a heart. Little love of our life.
So just to explain Gavin's pulse TA.
Pulse TA. This is the new phrase. It's a label for TAs.
So we know that there is a recruitment problem with teaching assistants, and unfortunately for some schools they have literally had to take on anything that has a pulse to be a body in a classroom, and that is how it has been described, that they've advertised, they've had nobody apply for it, eventually they get one application for it. They really are not suitable for the role, but they're going to offer them a temporary position because they've got a pulse and they can be in the classroom and they're just the extra body that they need.
And the school has to facilitate its legal requirements, and that's what it's trying to do.
Yeah, so that's where the phrase has come from. It wasn't us that coined it, it was somebody else that said, I'll take Twitter. It wasn't Twitter, actually, it was a Facebook.
Oh, okay. I blame Facebook.
I'll take anything with a pulse, basically, is what was actually said. Just quite scary, but hey-ho. So we have got we've got several camps of TAs. You've got your TA who wants to be a TA. They've come into it, they are career TAs. They have no interest in proceeding to teacher roles or even into, wherever else, family worker or whatever. You've got TAs who come into it because they're aspirational and they perhaps want to do it for a couple of years before moving into teaching or something else. You've got TAs who are doing it because it fits with the school hours and it's the only thing available in their local area because you haven't got a Costa or an Aldi near you. You know what
Costa comes into all the TA conversations.
It does a little bit. Start paying them in Costa vouchers. There we go. Sorry. And then you've got those your Pulse TAs, or you've even also got some TAs who really don't want to be there, but Universal Credit has told them they've got to apply for something.
There's also one that you've missed there. So there's also the TAs that have come to be TAs because they have a child who has special educational needs.
And they're complicated.
They are very complicated.
Not all of them, but they can be really complicated, especially if their child happens to be in your school as well.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, when we're having teaching assistant meetings, they are of two types. Either it is their appraisal, performance management, whatever you want to call it, or it is a CPD type session you're trying to do, and so general TA session. To be fair, I used to have weekly meetings with mine where they would just tell me about what's going on in classrooms, so I knew what's going on with kids. I used to do that twice a week, 15 minutes on Tuesday and a Thursday straight after school. And it really worked for us. In terms of scheduling those meetings, we've got to be really careful here because a lot of TAs only want to work school hours. So where do you fit a meeting in a school day that doesn't impact on your students? So I know that some schools, they do what they call a 50-50 meeting. So they'll take 50% of the TAs off timetable to go and have a 1 hour meeting or training or whatever it is. And then they go to their lessons and the other 50% come off timetable. It still means 50% of your students are not supported, but at least means there are bodies out there to provide support. I have seen schools that do drop-down days. So drop-down days are usually quite demanding on TAs in terms of their capacity because kids don't like change. But again, that's a good one to do your 50-50 split if you have a drop-down day. But you don't do those very often. Perhaps do it once half-term, so you only get 6 meetings.
And we've seen some TAs that have been paid for overtime, basically, to do the meetings after school, which then ups their wages, which is slightly better. But once again, it comes into that, I want to finish at this time here.
There's the problem with I want to finish at this time here and pick kids up, but there's also the problem if you start paying teaching assistants overtime, and I had this with one of my apprentices, is that it affects their benefits.
Yeah.
Because it takes them over a certain threshold, or could take them over a certain threshold, and even if that's only in 1 month, that can cause problems. So very often you can offer them overtime, but they don't want it because of those issues that it's going to cause.
Yeah.
So scheduling those meetings can be challenging. If you can do your meeting with your TAs and do it on Teams where you can record it so that they could then watch it, on a Thursday when you give them a PPA, if you give your TAs PPA, or watch it at some other available time, that could be a compromise way of actually approaching this.
Yeah, that actually works really well. And going back to the thing that we did for Oldham, that's exactly what it did. Yeah. So it was a record and watch, but it was also a record, sign in, it sends an email to your line manager to say that you have done it, and it ticks you off the list of saying people that have done it. So, but
also it was a live session anyway, so it was delivered live to anybody who could attend it live, and it was recorded at the same time, and then it was that recording that was made available on an LMS so that you got that notification of, yes, they've actually accessed this. So, but you're not going to do that on a Teams because you're not going to be able to see who's got it. So this is where emojis come in, because when you talk about emojis, stick a thumbs up. So if they haven't stuck their thumbs up on the bottom of that video, you're going to assume they haven't logged into Teams and checked that you've uploaded a video. Or ask a question. So everybody has to email you the answer to a very specific question that you're asking about something within there, and they have to do it by a certain deadline. So maybe it was, how many children did I say we've got coming up in September with an EHCP?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be something complex. It could just be that's what they've got to listen out for in that recording, which does mean they actually have to listen to it or read the transcript to find that information, and that shows that they've actually participated.
Yeah, there's a competency check on the bottom end of it. So that's a really, really good one. And just to go back to last week's video, which we were talking about the email system, and we've realised that we forgot one thing. So if you go back to the video, which I'll put up in the top corner above Abigail's head now, just remember that there is a 7th point that I just want to raise very quickly, which is that you can use the Microsoft Outlook emojis or responses just to say thank you or yes, I've received it, and save yourself time. emailing a response to things. So yeah.
I do this all the time, just to pick up on that. So when my apprentices send me an email, very often they're just saying to me, I've uploaded my work to OneDrive. I really do not need to type a response to that because I haven't read it, so I can't give them any feedback at that point, but I want to acknowledge that I've received their email. And I don't have send receipts and read receipts turned on for multiple reasons. Yep. I can't stand those. So I will click on the emoji icon and I will send a thumbs up. If they've sent me something to say, I can't make such and such meetings, or, if it comes to one of our partners, I can't make this meeting, I'm going to change it, or I've watched your video last week. It's just something you don't need to respond to, but you want to or you don't need to respond to it immediately. You just want to acknowledge it. The heart, or the smiley face, or the sad, I've had messages say I can't make the meeting this week and I put a sad face on it. But you can also choose your own emojis as well. There's a button on the right, it's a greyed out one, so you can choose other emojis, like you can put 100% or a tick or whatever else.
But that is last week's topic.
It goes with last week's, but it kind of links. It does link to today because we're talking about making sure everybody has access to the same information. This is what I think TAs get quite frustrated actually. They get dragged into an inset day where they're sat through, this is how Sims works for taking your register, and they're thinking this is not relevant to me. Or they're asked to do something that is outside of their working hours and then they miss out on it. Or they work part-time, so they don't work Wednesdays and you happen to deliver the training on a Wednesday. This is where I think recording it, putting it on Teams, can be, or whatever you use, can be really, really useful. And then getting that, thumbs up, the feedback, asking them a question. And it's no different to what we're supposed to be doing with KICSI, Keeping Children Safe in Education. Yes, you're supposed to have that training at the beginning of September each year to say, yes, we've updated our Keeping Children Safe in Education knowledge. However, your safeguarding lead should be asking you regular questions to make sure you are remembering it. Because let's face it, I could sit through a training last week and have forgotten it by the following day, to be fair. But we need with certain things to make sure everybody's staying on top. So again, if you're a DSL as well, it's a good way of doing it. Just ping something out, ask them a question, get them to send the answer in, but get them to use those emojis on Teams to do it.
That's a really good point, especially with something that is legally compliant that you have to do as well on that. So definitely set yourself up for something like that.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video. If you've got a friendly Deputy SENCO, Assistant SENCO, or SEN admin, whoever it is you're working with, we want to make sure that we keep that friendly relationship. So try and formalise some things. Make sure nobody feels that they're taking the lion's share of the work in there. Make sure you understand how your job is actually split. Who is doing what? Who's going to be responsible for what? And, use that opportunity to quality assure each other. You're very, very lucky if you have got an assistant or a deputy SENCO or even some SEN admin, because you do have that chance to bounce ideas off each other. And sometimes we've got a great idea ourselves, but it isn't necessarily going to work with the students that we have. And being able to bounce those ideas off somebody else in your school who understands your school is just an amazing opportunity. So really make good use of that. If, on the other hand, you have got a bit of a conflicting relationship with that person that you're working with, you've got to ask yourself why. Why are we conflicting here? What changes can we make so that we haven't got this conflict? Again, it usually comes down to formalising who does what, so one person doesn't feel like they're doing more than the other, and agreeing on your processes. So your policies and your processes will actually dictate what you're doing within here. So agree some meeting notes. Whenever you have a meeting, agree those meeting notes, share those meeting notes with each other, make sure that you've both got a copy and that you both agree it is a good reflection of that actual meeting. And whatever you do, keep a trail of everything, because you will find it helpful in the long run. It can be a bit of a pain to do as you're going, but it does come in handy in the long run. And then finally, with your teaching assistants, think about your timing. How can you actually do this? Because most teaching assistants, or a great majority of them, will go into this because it's a 9 till 3 job. They don't want to stay until 4:30, 5 o'clock to do a staff training or to listen to you talking about students. They're not going to want to take that work home because they don't get paid for working at home. So how can you fit this into their day, their CPD, their own personal development, their ability to share information with you and with other teachers about what is actually going on? Think about those timings. Think out of the box about how you can actually achieve that, and then make sure you're asking them questions, and without wishing to be dismissive of this, checking their competency on their answering of those questions. So having a look at, do they actually understand this, or are they just doing it by gut instinct, or are they just doing it because somebody told them to do it, rather than understanding why they're actually doing it. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.